Alright, what's going on, Giants fans? Doing another free agency video previewing position by position for the Giants, the most likely players they could target. Not the best players, not even necessarily what I would want, but most likely, even though there is a little bias for the guys I would want. And today we're doing cornerback. Now, the Giants do have a need at cornerback, too. They have James Bradbury and then Darnay Holmes playing the slot. Um, but they have a need at cornerback too. You know, you have Isaac Yiadom. How much do you trust him? I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to go into this season with him, but it's not a great option. Julian Love, you're going to give him a chance there? Or maybe that's a position they go in the draft. Maybe they like a Caleb Farley or somebody in the first round. So there's a lot of options for the Giants to do at this position. But let's look at free agency. And the first guy on my list is Desmond Trufant. He played with the Lions last year and with the Falcons the majority of his career. He's 6 foot, 196 pounds, 30 years old. He signed a 2-year, $20 million with Detroit. So say you could get him around $5 million. You know, they ended up cutting him. In fact, the director of personnel for them, O'Brien, just signed with the Giants, so there's a connection there. And there is a connection with the Giants with Jerome Henderson, who was the Giants DB's coach, was the Falcons DB's coach / pass game coordinator, while Trufant was in Atlanta. So he has missed some games the past couple years, so there's a little bit of an injury concern. But I feel like he might be like the best reasonable deal the Giants could get for this spot, where it's like you're not scraping the barrel, but you're also not like looking for the top guy. So I do think Trufant would be a real deal option for the Giants. There is connections, and he's been a solid player for his career. Again, he is turning 30, so there's you worry of him declining. But I think he's a good, solid option for the Giants. Versatile. He's good in man zone. I think he's a good, solid corner, and it's a signing that would make sense for the Giants, where you can get him on a reasonable deal, but also you're not expecting the world out of him in that cornerback 2 role, which really that cornerback 2 role with Patrick Graham hasn't been the most demanding role for the New York Giants. Next on the list was a guy that the Giants were supposed to sign, in Ross Cockrell, 6 foot, 190 pounds, 29 years old now. Obviously, we know he played for the Giants. And then the Giants were supposed to sign Ross Cockrell in camp. They had him in. He was even quarantining. Like, a deal was done. It was reported that Ross Cockrell was signing with the Giants. Didn't happen. I don't know what happened. I mean, but it wasn't like it was reported and then a few minutes later it was reported that it didn't happen. It was a couple days later. We did a whole episode on Ross Cockrell. I did all my research. Found out that him and Daniel Jones both went to the same high school and then both went to Duke. Shout out Charlotte Latin, I believe the name of the high school is. I mean, we did our deep dive on Ross Cockrell. We thought it was an awesome signing because the Giants cornerback 2 role at the time, Corey Ballantyne was the starter, and we know how much of a disaster that was. So, but he goes to the Bucs practice squad and ends up playing 12 games for them. Only about a quarter of the total defensive snaps for the year, but I don't know what happened to go from the Giants supposedly having a contract to the Bucs practice squad and making $700,000 a year. It doesn't make a ton of sense. But in 2019, where he did play a lot, his stats were awesome. His opponent's stats were 55% completion percentage, 6.7 yards per attempt, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. I mean, those are awesome numbers. So he can come in. You can get him for cheap. And the guy just signed to a freaking practice squad. So there is some connection there. Played the opposite side of James Bradbury in Carolina. So maybe Bradbury can convince him to come in. But I don't know what happened. But Ross Cockrell, if nobody said anything bad about each other's mothers, then and you're all cool, figure it out. Bring Ross Cockrell back in. Next on the list is the bottom of the barrel, and I do think this guy will be signed by the Giants. I don't think it'll be an answer to anything, but I do think he'll be signed. Ryan Lewis obviously played 2020 with the Giants after being claimed after 53-man roster cuts. 27 years old. He started three games for the Giants. He came in against the 49ers and looked pretty good. Looked really good against the Rams. And then the Eagles, the Cowboys game and the Eagles game, he had solid games, and then he just had those 2 big plays he gave. Remember, he gave the big play to Michael Gallup on the sideline, and then another one, I forget who the receiver was, against Philly on Thursday night. And those two plays, if they don't happen, you can argue that the Giants win both those games. Like those two plays don't happen. There's a good argument that the Giants win both those games. Then he got injured. Isaac Yiadom came in and did a serviceable job afterwards. And he just, never really got back healthy and back on the field. But there's no reason to not bring him back. Give him some more experience in the scheme. I mean, look at his advanced numbers. He gave up 50% completion rate, which is really good. The issue was the yards. It was 16.9 yards per catch. So it was less about the rate. It was just the catch because of those two big plays. So if you can teach him to not let guys get behind him, then maybe you got something there with Ryan Lewis as your fourth, fifth corner. So I mean, it's that deal's a why not deal for me for the Giants. Next on the list, we got a Joe Judge connection. Jason McCourty, corner for the Patriots. Everyone knows him by now. 33 years old, so he is older. He's 5'11", 195 pounds. He was playing for a little over $2.5 million for this past year for the Patriots. So you can get him on a reasonable deal. So you can. It wouldn't be a huge risk to go and get Jason McCourty. Basically, his 2020 wasn't great. Gave up 5 touchdowns. He was completion percentage wasn't great, but his 2019 was like elite. Now he wasn't playing full time, but his numbers were elite. I mean, he was giving up less than half completion percent rate. 0 touchdowns given up, 4.8 yards per attempt. I mean, those are elite numbers for Jason McCourty. It doesn't matter how much the sample size is, even though it was a good chunk. So that could be there. You have the relationship with Joe Judge. I'm like, well, he's old. Well, the cornerback two, like we said, the cornerback 2 spot, like we said before, isn't the most demanding position for the New York Giants. Especially if they're running more cover 3. I do think the Giants would like to free it up a little bit and blitz a little more. But Jason McCourty, I think, is a guy you can trust. You don't put him in the number 1 corner role. Don't put him on, one-on-one man coverage against a burner all game long. But I think he is somebody you can trust to run what the Giants want to do on defense, and especially in that more cover 3 role. So Jason McCourty, I do think, is an option. And he's a high character guy. He's got a weird Twitter account with his twin brother. I don't get it. But there is a connection there, and I think he'd be solid. Now, last on the list, I was thinking of who to do on this one, whether it was, Woozy or Lewis, who, were both in Dallas with Jason Garrett. Was trying to find connections, guys I might like. I even thought about putting Quentin Dunbar in there as a joke because, he was charged with crimes with DeAndre Baker and just not acknowledging that. But I said, you know what? Screw it. Because you know what? I don't know what the Giants' plans are. I don't know what their plans are. I have a good idea. I think I have a good idea from the outside looking in, as good as anybody could. But what if they do want to spend some money and they go after the 30-year-old, 6'1", 205-pound corner and Patrick Peterson? What if they do? Who's to say they don't? He is 30 years old now. I'm not going to tell you how good Patrick Peterson is. You know how good he is. So I went and looked at some contracts of some people in similar situations. And I think Richard Sherman was in a similar situation a couple years ago. And he signed a 3-year, $27 million deal. So that's a $9 million average annual value. That's not crazy. Like, we don't know what the Giants' plans are. So I don't think it's the craziest thing in the world. And they're both at 30 years old. And I think Peterson's better than Sherman. Peterson is better now than Sherman was then. So maybe the Giants want to have the best cornerback duo in the league with Patrick Peterson and James Bradbury. Like, why not? Why not? Say you let Dalvin walk or you let Leonard walk. We don't. Nothing's happened yet. So maybe they do that, and they go out and get Patrick Peterson. 2 years of it, are pretty much guaranteed. In the third year, you give him an out. You get an out of that contract. So, 28 career interceptions. I mean, he's a baller. And then if you have James Bradbury as the number 1, you're letting Peterson ride as the number 2. I mean, that just makes him better. It frees him up to take more chances. So, maybe the Giants just want to have the best, DBs in the NFL, which, the NFL is a passing league. You're not getting to the passer as quickly as you once did, even though the elite pass rushers are, I think, worth more than the elite corners. Maybe that's the way the Giants go and they do that. So I don't think it'd be the craziest thing in the world. I mean, we didn't think they'd be interested in Logan Ryan, and they ended up doing that. And maybe Peterson has a similar effect where free agency doesn't go the way he wants, and then he ends up signing for that $6 to $7 million contract or a 1-year deal. I don't know. But instead of freaking putting on Jordan Lewis, let's put on Patrick Peterson on the freaking list. So Appreciate you guys. Make sure to subscribe. We're putting out tons of content. We're not putting out much draft stuff this week or two because of free agency, but I'm still making it, putting in the draft, so there's going to be a lot more draft content. Appreciate you guys. See you next time. Subscribe, like. Let's go Big Blue.